This is Hoskie Juan's story. I will tell you what I remember of what my grandmother told me about the journey to Huelde. The Dine lived very poorly in the early days. There were no trading posts. Only a few Navajos owned livestock, such as cattle, sheep, and horses. In some areas, the Navajos did not own any kind of livestock. To make a living, these Dine used to help the people who owned livestock. Small native potatoes grew out in the open areas around Lake Valley. The Dine dug out the potatoes and used them for food. They traveled to gather fruits like rush grass. Only the white seeds were taken out until a bag was filled. Fremont goosefoot was used for mush or for making bread. The people did not grow much corn or squash. Goats provided milk for the children and families. The people traveled into the mountains to gather winter foods, such as yucca fruits, suma red berries, and rabbit thorn berries. They dried these native foods and stored them for winter use. When food was scarce, the people hunted for dead horse ligament, which they boiled for soup. There was no sugar, salt, or coffee. My great-grandmother went to Fort Sumner. She said they were watched constantly by the soldiers. They were scared of the enemies, even at Fort Sumner. Some people took sheep with them. A little food was distributed among the Navajos. My great-grandmother had lots of sheep. She herded the sheep to Fort Sumner and left them nearby in the forest to keep an eye on them. One day, when she was going to check on the sheep, it started to snow. She put her woven saddle blanket on an unsaddled horse and left for her sheep camp. The snow was getting deep, and it was impossible to see through the snow and fog. She traveled on her horse for some distance, and then she lost her path to the sheep camp. She said, "There's no surviving now. I will freeze to death." She wasn't wearing heavy clothes at the time, just her buckskin dress and moccasins, and her blanket, which was a woven rug and goatskins sewn together. She was not sure if she was going in the right direction. She got off the horse and put her blankets and woven saddle blanket under a tree. She looked around for direction. Her horse was standing next to her, dripping from perspiration. The snow was up to her knees, and her buckskin dress and moccasins were frozen to her. It was still snowing heavily. She heard an owl in the distance. The sound came closer, and then the owl sat on a tree branch that she was standing under. She said to the owl, "Please, grandfather, help me. I am freezing." She spread her saddle blanket on the snow and sat on it. Then she heard tree branches breaking off a tree, and she listened to the sound. She went to sleep and slept all night. When she woke up at dawn the next day, she noticed that her blanket, buckskin dress, and moccasins were dry. The snow had melted and dried around her, and the horse was eating grass. The owl was sitting on the tree branch looking at her. She said to the owl, "Thank you, grandfather, for helping me survive the snowstorm." It was a beautiful morning. There were no clouds or snow, and she could see her way to the sheep camp. The owl flew off in that direction, and she followed it. This is how the story was told to me by my grandmother about her grandmother's survival.